Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris J, and I am excited to chat with you about our first eclipse. So, we're talking about our Pisces full moon lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse. This is happening on September 7th. It is happening at 11:08 a.m. Pacific time on September 7th. So, you want to adjust for wherever you are. Folks that have worked with me for a little while know that I love me eclipse season. I love these energies that really open us to evolutionary shifts in our journeys. And that is what eclipse seasons do. And this is a very potent eclipse season because it is happening in what is an evolutionary jump for humanity with what the outer planets are weaving in and through us and around us and everywhere. So we're going to open up these layers. It is a potent time. I do have one announcement. I like to get into things right away and I forget my announcements. I am closing the enrollment into my Evolutionary and Embodied Astrology program on September 2nd. So for any folks that are kind of on the fence, you've got a few days depending when you watch this. And then I will close it. And for folks that are joining me, I cannot wait to see you in class. And here we go. Let's talk about this eclipse. So, eclipse season, this opened with our Virgo new moon. And it was a bit of a doozy for some of us. And so as we're merging out of that, one of the big shifts that's happening that is present for this first eclipse is that Saturn for the eclipse has moved back into Pisces. And we cannot separate this eclipse and this eclipse season from the ongoing story that is literally restoring our identities, our what it means to be in this human experience, that is the outer planets. And as I'm making this, I'm actually making this as Uranus and Neptune are in their exact sextile, which is of course still going to be present for our eclipse. Saturn is just about to move back into Pisces as I'm making this. It is conjunct Neptune. It is conjunct Neptune for this eclipse. Uranus is conjunct Sedna, and as I'm making this, Sedna is in its exact trine with Pluto. We have very close conversations emerging in the outer planets, and that's kind of holding this eclipse. So what is this eclipse? We have got our sun in Virgo. It's happening at 15 degrees. So the sun is in Virgo at 15 degrees and it's a full moon. So the moon is opposite and it's at 15 degrees of Pisces. What makes it an eclipse is that it's happening within proximity to what we call the nodes of the moon. And so the north node is at 18 degrees of Pisces. So this is a full moon. It's a total lunar eclipse where that moon is conjunct the north node in Pisces. And we're going to talk, and this is what we're going to talk about. And the south node is in Virgo and it is conjunct our sun. Now we also have Mercury in Virgo. Mercury is at 10 degrees of Virgo for this eclipse. So Mercury is conjunct that south node and it's conjunct that sun as well. Okay, so there are strong messages most likely coming through, especially around what you are releasing. And right away, eclipse season is always a time when we get to have the opportunity to check in on what wants to be released, what we're in the process of releasing. And usually it's where that south node is that the massive release is happening. That is the case. But this is particular because we have an eclipse happening in Pisces. And we had last September 18th, we had an eclipse in Pisces at 25 degrees. And when we're having an eclipse in Pisces, there is also a closing out in that Pisces realm. And that is because Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. And we literally have Saturn, who has been so active in this ongoing closing out and rebirthing, this death process that is happening on many levels. Saturn is at the final degree of Pisces for this eclipse, signaling that there is something that is in the it's in process of closing out. We've been working with this. It might be pulling up themes of what was going on last September for you. It's most likely pulling up themes of what's been going on for the past few months, especially what opened during that new moon, where usually that opening is also coming alongside a closing. I mean, the Virgo new moon that we just had. And so what is potent and also difficult about this first eclipse is that there is closing out in the Virgo realms and the Pisces realms. And always with the closing out, there's opening. But there's potentially a lot of release and a lot of letting go. And these could be very, very old stories. They most likely are stories that are beyond whatever is coming up in life right now for you. You know, whatever's coming up in the present moment, it can usually take a lot of energy. And yet one of the ways of working in and really actually conserving our energy in when we're getting pulled into drama in the present is to see what it's pulling up from potentially past patterns. This is a Virgo South node. Past patterns are coming up. Past patterns in our lives, childhood patterns, and also if you work with past lives, if that's part of your kind of understanding worldview, spiritual path, absolutely it's bringing up past life stuff too. And that's what the nodes do. They bring up the karmic threads. And it's like we've been feeling it, and then the thread emerges. And then goddess, fate, creator, spirit, the archetypes weave those threads with us. We are the weavers and we are being woven. It is simultaneous. It is both. We are the story and we are the storyteller. It is no separation. There is no struggle between is it fate or is it free will? They are both interwoven when we work with embodied archetypal astrology. There is no struggle to understand, you know, these deep philosophical questions that really emerged with the Enlightenment and the shift into a very strong patriarchal order of knowledge making. Who is in control? In a co-creative experience, which when we practice from an embodied place with astrology, emerges in our consciousness in other ways of knowing, because the body brings in other ways of knowing. Just like those leaves are blowing in the wind, there are other ways of knowing, and it is our body and our ecosystem and the elements, and it's all so rich, and it's in astrology. And eclipse moments are important times because we can really feel how we are both weaving and being woven, and it's allowing that process, allowing that infinity spiral to be embodied that really supports the process. And so what is that process for you? Wherever you have 15 degrees of Virgo, you know, and very strongly in, you know, that like 12, 10, anytime an astrologer puts an orb out there of like 3 degrees or 5 degrees, immediately there's someone that's like, can it be 6 degrees? Because that's where I have a placement. Short answer is yes. Okay. Orbs are very personal. In evolutionary astrology, sometimes we have some strict rules with them when we're talking about transits and outer planets. It's about how sensitive we are. It's about what we're feeling. It's about your intuition. Okay. But if you work with degrees, if you have something in Virgo from 10 to 20 degrees or so, there's a big clearing out. And if you don't have anything, there's still a big clearing out. But if you have a placement there, that speaks archetypally to what you're working with. If you got your Mars sitting at 14 degrees of Virgo, you are working with your Mars and really letting go strong ways that you've had attachments to what your drive is, especially around anything in perfectionism, anything around around clinging too tightly, not trusting the divine flow, right? So this is why astrology is very personal, and yet you listen and you take intuitively what works with you. So in that area of Virgo, the sun is at 15 degrees, the south node is at 18 degrees. There is a strong clearing. There is a letting go. We have been working with this, we've been working with the nodes in the Pisces Virgo axis. We just had a very potent Virgo new moon to set intentions. I was really, really looking at how the intentions we were setting were to really hold us as we move through eclipse season. Then our second eclipse is going to be another Virgo new moon. That's the partial solar eclipse. And that's going to help us set intentions, taking us into the next 6 months, because we are on wild rides these weeks. And yet, just being honest, what is clearing out? What are you releasing? And Mercury is there, right? 5 degrees from the sun. There really could be some messages coming through around what you are releasing. There could be some understanding here. You do really want to pay attention to your body as you're moving up to and through this eclipse season. There could be strong messages coming through, really taking care. And what do you need to do to take care of your body? The practices, especially during eclipse season. Not putting too much pressure on yourself to hold to an idea of what care is, but coming from the inside out. If your schedule shifts, if usually you do yoga at this time, or usually you do this and you're just not feeling it, you want to go with what you're feeling, because listening to the body, is really important during this time. And this is your own embodied experience. Listen to yourself, because this is a Pisces lunar eclipse. Pisces is about our intuition. So let's talk about that moon. That moon is at 15 degrees of Pisces. It is conjunct the north node. The north node in Pisces, this wants us to open to intuition, to trusting what is not knowable with the cognitive mind, trusting what cannot be planned, trusting what you see from your heart and your soul and your psyche, trusting the unknown. And this is why Pisces energy, especially with all the conditionings that we get put on us and brought up in, can sometimes be hard. And it's why folks that have really, really strong Pisces energy can sometimes struggle to insert themselves in paradigms that just don't align with Pisces. Because Pisces is about not knowing where I'm going and going there because I do know, just not with the mind. But the thing is that this way of knowing, it does not get translated into a simple, this happened so that this could happen. We are taught to try and make sense of everything, to rationalize the shit out of everything, to translate it. And that is not how Pisces works. Pisces is the realm of other ways of knowing. And so this moon is opening us to trusting the intuition, to trusting the unseen, to trusting your soul's knowing, which does speak through synchronicity, through dream, through intuition, through animal speak, through nature speak, through the wilderness, through the wilds of the self opening, and trusting that you already know how to speak that language. But it is not what we are taught in most schools and most programs. And this is the soul's language, right? This is why, for me, embodied evolutionary astrology is the language of the soul. And there are other ways that we can speak with it, but evolutionary and embodied astrology just is so beautiful in working with the archetypes. And it's opening. Now, this is happening in Pisces. Saturn is just coming back. Saturn is conjunct Neptune, who's the ruler of Pisces, in Aries. That's where Neptune is sitting. So there's also a shift that's happening. We have been journeying, we have been doing it, we have been witnessing, you have been doing it. And now these two planets who have been journeying so closely, Saturn is starting to go on, it's taken a little space. It's going to go back to that 25 degrees. And it is going to, help us clear out and dissolve and surrender structures of the self that weren't ready to be surrendered last year, that weren't ready to be surrendered 6 months ago, but we're coming to a stage when we are ready to surrender. And Pisces is ultimately an archetype of surrender. It is when the ego surrenders and returns to source. And Pisces shows us that every single one of us, by being human, has the ability to learn without intervention, without substances, without anything except closing our eyes, breathing, and journeying. And dreams are actually something that help us learn how to journey, learn how to quiet the ego. And dream work is wonderful for coming into other ways of knowing, because that's what Pisces opens us up to. And during this eclipse, you do want to pay attention to your dreams. And again, not translating them into these neat little boxes, but allowing them to speak however they speak. And there is a shift because that Saturn has come in and it's at the final degree. And so in some ways, this first eclipse is opening us to the massive end, the ending of what we are getting ready to let go. And there is something that is ending. And in Pisces, it is deep. It is not just, I'm going to start a new Virgo system. I'm going to start a new whatever it is. This is so deep that there aren't actually words, but there are stories. And if you are called to sit and just let your imagination flow into stories, to paint them, to dance them, it is one of the most wonderful ways to work with Pisces energy. And there are stories coming through. And remember that messenger of the gods, Mercury, is conjunct that south node. And Mercury can give form to the stories that want to emerge. And it is a wonderful time leading up to, on, and through this first eclipse and all of eclipse season to let yourself story these deep experiences, however they're coming. And you don't need to do anything with them, but just honor them with reverence and gratitude, because that is part of what Pisces asks for. Pisces takes us in to the depths of the depths. It is the void. It is the collective unconscious. It is also the beautiful heights of total presence with divine mystery. And yet, especially when we're accessing that in this human form and experience, there's usually grief. There's usually grief that accompanies that a spiritual awakening. And here it's really important not to judge grief as bad, but to understand that grief is a language of love and to allow it. And there is just such depth with this Pisces experience. And there is closing out, and it could go deep. And with that, there is also incredible new beginnings, new stories, new myths, their awakening. New communities being formed, both from our Gemini situation and Aquarius. There is just so much that is emerging, but we are in a process, and we are in a closing out process right now. And it's really important to give the space to the closing out so that that which is being birthed can emerge. And there's some undertones with this eclipse that I really want to name because they're just quite extraordinary. So in addition to that, those are the main energies. That's our kind of eclipse. That's our sun and our moon in Pisces and Virgo. We also have Venus is at 15 degrees of Leo for this eclipse. She is in an exact inconjunct with our moon. Okay, so Venus is sitting at 15 degrees of Leo. She's in an exact inconjunct with our moon and also, of course, with the North Node. And Ceres is sitting at 14 degrees of Aries, and she is in an exact inconjunct with our sun and also the South Node. So there are these undertones coming up, and they are from the divine feminine in fire signs, in inconjuncts. And this is important because an inconjunct is most important when it is very exact. And these are pretty exact, especially that Venus. And so Venus is there in Leo, reminding us that what we're letting go of, what we're opening to, our intuition, those Pisces realms, this is so that we can begin journeys that are about your heart's creative, divine flow of courageous love going after your heart's values. This is not about anything that we have been taught is the measure of success. This is not the early conditionings of childhoods and parents' unmet wants that get stuck onto children that sometimes have nothing to do with those children's desires and can spend decades trying to fulfill them. This is about what your soul has come into and how this body, embodied life, is here so that you can feel your heart's desires flowing through this body and shine them out. And it's so important to honor what your courageous fire, desires, values, divine feminine energy is calling you to now. And to let that come in to what you are seeding, to what you are dreaming, to what you're imagining, and what you're letting go of. And the inconjunct here also, if we are pursuing dreams, goals, desire that is not aligned with our heart, we're probably going to feel it. And we're probably going to have reminders that we're going after things that are really not what we need to be going after right now. And Ceres, our Earth Mother, is in Aries, our fire, also about desire, but a very different type of desire than Leo. In Aries, this is about primal desire. The Aries desire is about need. And that's where when Aries gets taught that it needs things that aren't actually aligned with like what its soul's primal desires are, Aries can get kind of messed up. But Aries here is talking to the South Node, and Ceres brings in this unconditional nurture for your primal fires. And this is important because the Venus in Leo, that's about you. The Ceres in Aries, that's about you. This is about your primal needs and fires, and that is going in to the South Node and the Sun. And there, again, what are you letting go of? What have you been clinging to that is just not nurturing? Maybe it has a really great idea. Maybe it's been wrapped up in the idea of being a good person or being of service or a good daughter or a good fill in the blank. Ceres here says there is something about your primal needs that needs to be seen. It's fire and it needs to be honored, and it is pushing something out. It is pushing something out of those Virgo realms and the ways that we can really cling to what we think we're supposed to be doing. And the word supposed to is a red flag here. Supposed to and shoulds. Whatever's coming up, you want to pay attention to those. I should do this because that's what the good daughter does. I should do this because that's what. You want to be as brutally honest as possible as you can be about what you need right now. And this Ceres, you don't mess with the Earth Mother. You just don't. And she's going to make it known if we're going after things that we really don't need. And so these inconjuncts they're very important. because they're very exact. There is also a layer coming in, which is that Jupiter is in Cancer, and Jupiter is trining our Pisces realms and sextiling our Virgo realms. So Jupiter is also trining our moon, our north node, and that's a water trine. And that is also bringing in a little bit softer than the inconjunct, a little bit softer, especially than that series. She's got mama bear energy all the way with fire behind it. The Jupiter in the trine is a more gentle reminder that this is about expanding into what is your heart-centered nurturing path during this eclipse season. Whatever you're into, it's also lovely because it helps us access that intuition. But again, it's coming in with a softer, this is about nurture, this is about care. The Virgo can get really attached to what it thinks it's supposed to do, and that can be quite conditioned by social norms and by the power structures that the outer planets are collapsing. And so the water trine is really about embracing what is nurturing to you, what is opening the heart space, and it's more intuition. And it's supporting us to flow into that intuition, flow into those Pisces realms. The flowing into that is part of the releasing of the grasping of the earth energy. It's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of layers. I'll probably have another video before we get there, but hopefully this gives you some ways of working with whatever you're being restored into, whatever's weaving itself with and through you as we are about to journey into this first eclipse. So I am sending out lots and lots of love, and I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.